Mark from Mark My Words here. I've been on a bit of a U2 kick lately. Perhaps it's the new releases, the Days of Ash, the Easter Lily EPs that have got me a bit more inspired to do more U2 content on my channel. So today I thought I would discuss maybe a little bit of a polarizing subject because it's going to take a lot of thought, a lot of opinion. Let's discuss the best U2 albums, more realistically, my favorite U2 albums, which will maybe get us having a conversation on your favorite U2 album. So come along, mark my words, exploration of my favorite U2 albums. So today I wanted to talk about my favorite U2 albums, and this isn't about critical acclaim, although conversely many of these albums that I like did receive those type of critical reviews that people enjoyed, people loved, but they're special to me, my favorite U2 albums, which may not be aligned with critics or may be completely aligned. And my picks are probably the ones that maybe are your favorites. To be determined. Hopefully some comments will come and we can have a discussion about that. But U2 are very dear to me. So a lot of these albums are important to me because of the time in my life when I heard them, maybe the experience in my life at that time as those songs were coming into my life. Maybe I was a bit more open or receptive, or I was at a time where the music was matching my emotions. So U2 have just been such a huge part of my life over these past, since what? I discovered U2 in or about 1986, 1987. So, wow, we're talking about, what is that, 40 years of U2? Well, I'll do the math later. But I really fell in love with them the summer of 1987, The Joshua Tree. So it's such an obvious album, and therefore I almost regret to say it's one of my favorites, but it really is. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. It was just absolute infectious ear candy to me, and it really got me curious about U2. With or Without You was the lead single, and it was fine, and I just kept on hearing about U2. They were on the radio, people were talking about them. I'm of Irish descent, they're Irish, so that had me curious. So I remember I got their album, I believe it was actually the winter of 1987 going into 1988. And I listened to that album first song to last song, and it made me really appreciate how good an album could be. It really evolved me. It took me on a musical journey, and I really fell in love with the band U2. And also just being a little naive and not being extremely knowledgeable, I didn't even realize they had a back catalog of other songs. So a member of my family had Unforgettable Fire and let me borrow it. And I didn't realize how great or how amazing some of those songs were until I had that tape. Because U2 were what? College radio? I mean, up until Joshua Tree, they weren't being played on mainstream, so a lot of those catalog songs, back catalog songs, they weren't apparent to me. So hearing Pride in the Name of Love and sort of Homecoming, I just felt the emotion and the rawness of it, and Edge's guitar and Bono's vocals. So it really hit me. And then I heard the song Bad, and it changed me. So my first fall in love experience was I still haven't found what I'm looking for. And my second was Bad. So those are my top U2 songs. But the albums that surround them are just so good that Unforgettable Fire is another one of my favorites. So far we've gone through Joshua Tree being one of my favorites, Unforgettable Fire. And these are hardly shocking. I think a lot of people would say the same. Right? Their first explorations with Daniel Lanois, Brian Eno, U2 were just trying to work outside of their usuals, right? They had different producers. They were working with Steve Lillywhite for many years. So that canvas they were painting on, that soundscape, really worked with them. the lyrics, the emotion, and it really created those masterpieces. My next album that I really connected to is Achtung Baby. I mean, I'll talk about why I love Rattle and Hum, but Achtung Baby was just such a change for U2. They had such a reputation for being who they were. Stalwart, good guys, maybe a little bit serious. But U2 had just become so big, right? It was like the Beatles. They needed to create a Sgt. Pepper album where they could be somebody other than themselves. And U2 created that, or Bono did, created that Fly character, which enabled them to be sort of smarmy, sort of funny, embrace the rock style lifestyle. And the music that came along with it was just so transparently different than what they had been creating before that you couldn't help get caught up in the adventure of it. I questioned it at first. I really had a hard time understanding that album, but it was so captivating and it was so good that it resonates to me as another one of my favorite U2 albums. So I'm talking Joshua Tree, Unforgettable Fire, and Achtung Baby are my top three. Really, I think it's not uncommon that a lot of people would point to those. I wish I was a little bit different, more varied in my answers, but I want to speak more about some of the other albums that I think are honorable mentions that are just so great. I think Boy is a great album. As I got into Joshua Tree and then listened to Unforgettable Fire, I went right back to the beginning and I listened to Boy. And Boy is such a mature album despite its innocence, right? Despite it being about youth and innocence and the experience therein about Boy becoming a man. And it was their first album, and they really didn't have the knowledge or the experience, but that album is just so concise, it's so tight, the songs are really very neat and echoey, and it really resonates to this day. I love that album. Thinking their next album would be as good, October was a bit of a miss for me. I didn't connect to it. A couple great songs on it. And then I went on to War, and War obviously had Sunday Bloody Sunday, such a big epic song. But I fell in love with Seconds and 40, but I didn't love the album as much, right? It didn't work as well as some of the other albums start to finish. Great songs on it, but to me it was never really much of a full album. And then Rattle and Hum came along. I'm fast forwarding a little bit here, and I was so waiting for that album. I was such in anticipation as I was a U2 fan by that point. It was the first new album that had come out after the Joshua Tree, and I was unabashed. I was just such a huge U2 fan, and I bought that album the day it came out and played it to death. And there's some great songs on that album, but again, it's not an album that I love every song on it. There are very few albums. Even Joshua Tree doesn't have every song fantastic. Right, Mothers of the Disappear is a nice calm closer. Exit's okay. It has a lot of passion, a lot of fury in it, but not every album is perfect. Another honorable mention that I really quite enjoyed was All That You Can't Leave Behind. After the Pop album had come out, I think U2 had lost their way. They lost their connection to their audience of what I think made U2 great, that passion, that spiritualness, that, I don't know, experimental nature. I guess pop was experimental, but I did particularly love it, and it felt disjointed. And All That You Can't Leave Behind was a bit of a return to that soulfulness, that spirituality, that buoyant sound. So All That You Can't Leave Behind was particularly special to me at a time in my life where I was just needing something, and U2 fulfilled it. They gave it to me, and I'm very grateful. How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. I think there is a good album in there. There's some clunkers that I think could have been filled with how to reassemble an atomic bomb. There's some straight out amazing songs on that. Why they put Yahweh, All Because of You, Original of the Species, instead of Treason or Happiness is beyond me. Or why they didn't do a double album, because that could have been a great album. It's mostly a good album. So, what do you think? Spoken a lot, said a lot about my passions. What are some of the albums that really resonate for you? I'm sure, is it Joshua Tree? Is it Unforgettable Fire, Achtung Baby? Or are we looking at the Songs of Innocence or Experience albums. I'm looking at my list as I look off camera. Songs of Surrender came out not that long ago, but that was just a re-imaging, re-recording, reimagining, I meant, of songs they've done. I didn't particularly like that. Days of Ash and Easter Lily, I'm very encouraged by. New music, very good. No Line on the Horizon, I love that title track. Moment of Surrender, some great songs in that one. And then obviously there was Zooropa, which was sort of the companion piece to Achtung Baby, which had some great songs too. But tell me what your favorites are. Are they different? I didn't mention any of the ones that were live albums and or kind of extended plays like Wide Awake in America or Under a Blood Red Sky, as those are more live songs and collections done that way. But yeah, U2 have a lot of great albums, and those ones particularly speak to me just because of, I think, the age I was. Joshua Tree, Unforgettable Fire, was 16, 15, 16, and just music was becoming more and more important to me, and U2 really filled that void. So those are some of, mark my words, favorite U2 albums. Thanks for watching today. Look forward to hearing your feedback on your favorite albums, and appreciate all the viewership. I've gotten a lot of new subscribers recently, and I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much for that. Hopefully more continue, some likes and comments. And again, thank you for your participation. Thank you for watching.